Iran has issued some of the most forceful warnings yet to the United States in the escalating Middle East conflict, directly challenging America's military posture in the Gulf and signaling that it will not back down in the face of intensifying pressure from Washington and its partners. As U.S. troops continue to move into the region and a ceasefire proposal described as a 15-point plan makes its way to Tehran through intermediaries, the situation remains volatile, with military exchanges, diplomatic posturing, and demands from both sides shaping a confrontation that has already drawn in multiple nations and destabilized energy markets worldwide. Officials in Islamabad, speaking on condition of anonymity, have confirmed that the United States has sent a detailed 15-point ceasefire proposal to Iran aimed at pausing the war and creating space for negotiations. The proposal was transmitted via Pakistan's government, which, along with Egypt and Turkey, is attempting to facilitate dialogue between the two adversaries. Pakistani and Egyptian officials have both publicly expressed a desire to bring the United States and Iran to the negotiating table in Islamabad, but Tehran's public response has been mixed and remains a point of intense debate across diplomatic circles. Iran's initial public rejection of the U.S. plan was emphatic. Iranian state media and official channels described the proposal as unrealistic in its expectations and framed it as an imposition rather than a genuine peace offer. Nevertheless, senior Iranian officials have indicated that the proposal continues to be reviewed internally, suggesting that the public rhetoric may not fully reflect Tehran's behind-the-scenes deliberations. This apparent conflict between public statements and private evaluation has added a layer of uncertainty to the already complex diplomatic landscape. Amid these diplomatic maneuvers, Iran's leadership has not softened its overarching foreign policy stance. Hardline figures in Tehran have used the moment to challenge Gulf Arab states directly, questioning the value of the American military presence in the region and urging them to reconsider their security alignments. In a series of speeches and broadcasts widely disseminated on Iranian state platforms, officials argued that Gulf nations have gained little from hosting U.S. bases and that these alliances have done little to enhance their security in the face of Iranian military action. One prominent Iranian figure declared, "What good have U.S. bases brought you? And if Israel attacks, will America fire even a single bullet to defend you?" A stark indictment of America's role as a security guarantor for its regional partners. This line of rhetoric is part of a broader effort by Tehran to position itself as the primary defender of Muslim nations against what it characterizes as unjust Western influence, tying its critique to appeals rooted in religious and cultural identity. Iranian leaders have also framed the conflict as a pivotal moment for Islamic unity, arguing that reliance on external infidel powers is incompatible with the sovereignty and future of Muslim nations. Drawing on religious scripture and historical grievances, they portray the conflict as not merely geopolitical, but a defining struggle for self-determination and dignity. In televised addresses, they castigate alliances between Muslim governments and Western powers, asserting that such ties have historically undermined regional strength and cohesion. At the same time, Tehran's official military communication channels have taunted Washington. In comments relayed by state media, Iran's military suggested that the United States appeared to be negotiating with itself, a claim aimed at undermining the credibility of U.S. diplomatic messaging and highlighting perceived internal confusion in Washington over strategy. The United States, for its part, has maintained that negotiations, or at least diplomatic engagement, remain ongoing despite Iranian denials of direct talks. The White House press secretary reiterated that discussions continue and emphasized that productive conversations are underway. However, she also declined to provide specifics about the ceasefire plan's details, characterizing some reports circulating in the media as only partly accurate. This ambiguity has underscored the complexity of the diplomatic situation, in which public messaging from Washington and Tehran sometimes appears at odds with behind-the-scenes maneuvering. While diplomacy has captured headlines, the conflict's military dimension has only intensified. The Pentagon has ordered significant reinforcements to the region, including thousands of additional troops. Elements of the U.S. Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division, trained for rapid crisis response, have been tasked to deploy, potentially adding several brigades to a burgeoning force arrayed across the Gulf. These moves come in addition to existing U.S. Marines and sailors already on strategic ships near Iran, reinforcing Washington's readiness to respond to contingencies. Strategic discussions within U.S. defense circles have touched on sensitive options, ranging from securing key maritime routes to seizing strategic terrain should circumstances make such actions necessary. A focal point of debate has been the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow maritime choke point through which a substantial share of the world's oil and gas passes. Iran's military posture in the strait has raised concerns about the free flow of energy exports, and some U.S. defense planners have contemplated bold actions to ensure access for commercial vessels should pressure tactics or hostilities escalate further. Iran's military, for its part, has continued to project strength. Missile and drone strikes attributed to Tehran have hit targets across the Gulf and neighboring states, including attempts to disrupt shipping and military installations in countries allied with the United States. In at least one instance, an Iranian drone strike sparked a significant fire at an international airport, drawing condemnation from the affected government and further inflaming regional tensions. Casualties and displacement across the region have mounted as the conflict has evolved. Publicly available data drawn from official sources and health ministries indicate that thousands of Iranians and Lebanese have been killed or wounded, with additional deaths reported among Israeli and U.S. service members. The humanitarian toll has been compounded by evacuations from affected cities, disrupted transportation networks, and widespread civilian distress as the war enters its fourth week. International reactions have been mixed, with some governments calling for de-escalation and urging both sides to return to negotiations. United Nations officials have warned that the conflict's humanitarian and economic impacts could spiral out of control if left unchecked, emphasizing the urgent need for diplomatic solutions to halt the fighting and prevent further loss of life. Despite pressure from global powers, the centrifugal forces driving the confrontation remain powerful. Tehran's leadership insists that any ceasefire or peace deal must respect its core strategic interests, including national sovereignty, security guarantees, and Iran's missile and nuclear programs. At the same time, Washington has signaled that it will not accept terms that compromise the basic security assurances of its allies or undermine broader non-proliferation objectives. This impasse has made compromise elusive and the prospects for a negotiated settlement uncertain. As diplomatic channels continue to operate behind closed doors and military deployments expand, the conflict shows little sign of abating. Both sides remain entrenched in their positions, Tehran asserting defiance and a vision of regional autonomy, and Washington pushing forward with military readiness and measured diplomatic engagement. In the shadow of this standoff, regional governments, international mediators, and global markets alike watch closely, understanding that the path ahead, whether toward peace or further confrontation, will shape the geopolitics of the Middle East for years to come.